Hey, how's it going? So, Mark Carney, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, and U.S. President Donald Trump, in case you didn't know who those two people were, are having their first meeting this morning, which was supposed to happen right now at 11:45 Eastern Time. And Mark Carney's late to the meeting, and I think I know why. I'll get to that in a moment. But I don't know. Maybe around noon is when they're probably going to meet face to face. Though Mark Carney has not even arrived at the White House yet, at least according to the CBC feed, which I will bring up as we are waiting here. I'm gonna mute it. There we go. So this is all happening. So the reason why, I'll keep an eye on it on my other screen just in case he shows up. But the speculation as to why Mark Carney is not yet there is due to this very late Truth Social post that just went out, 11:23. So Mark Carney was already supposed to be in the White House at 11:15. Still has not arrived. But Donald Trump truthing this out, saying, "I look forward to meeting the new Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney." Well, first of all, baby steps. He called him the Prime Minister of Canada. There we go. Good first move, I suppose. Treating him with the respect of the title that he actually has. I very much want to work with him, but I cannot understand one simple truth. Why is America subsidizing Canada by $200 billion a year? This is the same bullshit this guy lays out every time. In addition to giving them free military protection and many other things. We don't need their cars. We don't need their energy. He had to change the tariff policy because of how intertwined car manufacturing is between the US and Canada. So, okay, we don't need their cars. We don't need their energy. We don't need their lumber. We don't need anything they have other than their friendship, which hopefully we will always maintain. Yeah, because it is on you, clearly. So it is your burden. They, on the other hand, need everything from us. The Prime Minister will be arriving shortly, and that will be most likely my only question of consequence. Okay, so this went out very late. Again, 11:23. So this is the speculation as to why Mark Carney is late to show up to the White House is because maybe they're trying to figure out how they're going to deal with this, if this is the approach. So a win would simply be avoiding an international incident, like avoiding what happened with Zelensky and Trump and JD Vance. I wonder if JD Vance is going to be there. That would be probably not a good thing. If JD Vance is there. JD Vance, also known as Jamil Javani's best friend. Jamil Javani is a conservative MP. I recently did a video on Jamil Javani as he spoke out against Doug Ford, another conservative, but the conservative premier of Ontario of the Progressive Conservative Party. So there's a lot of internal fighting right now between conservatives in Canada. That isn't even to mention, the separatist movement of Alberta or whatever exists of that, and their attempts to also undermine Canada and at the same time, you could say undermine the Conservative Party, which will be really bizarre if Pierre Poilievre, who is now going to run in a riding in Alberta, if he is expected to, but when he wins that riding, since he lost his own in Carleton, he's now going to be in a province that the base of his party, at least some of them, want to separate from Canada. So how's that all going to work? How's he going to discuss that issue when he is the conservative leader in a province that wants to leave Canada? I miss the days where nothing happened. And I know that's weird to say as somebody who covers the news, but I wouldn't mind doing something else with my life. This all gets a little complex, a little exhausting. There's other things happening. This morning, I was so caught up on other stuff that has nothing to do with this. I was caught up in the Leafs game last night that they won. They beat Panthers in game 1 of the second round. But not to get too deep down this rabbit hole, but Sam Bennett, that rat on the Panthers, once again headshot at somebody else, this time our goaltender. And he's getting away with it. But anyways, I was engulfed in that. And then the Grand Theft Auto 6 trailer came out, trailer number 2, and it looks freaking amazing. It's too bad that game is a year away. But holy crap, if you haven't seen the second trailer for Grand Theft Auto 6, go look it up. Looks incredible. So, anyways, I was caught up in more enjoyable things. And then I realized this is happening today. I want to cover this live because they are going to be meeting face to face in public. And then after their public meeting, which hopefully will happen within the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to guess around noon, but maybe a little later. After that, they're going to have their private closed door meeting. And then I believe at 3 p.m. is when Mark Carney will have a press conference by himself to discuss what happened in that meeting. So really the goal here is to come out of this with nothing, because you're not going to have any kind of deal. And when it comes to Trump, what would even be the point of reaching any sort of written agreement? Trump is the guy that reneged on his own trade deal, the USMCA. So, why even bother trying to do anything with this guy? It's about just trying to weather the storm for the next 4 years and hope there's another election that isn't rigged, that Trump loses. But it's kind of hard to make a deal with somebody who doesn't even agree to his own deals after he called them fantastic, amazing, the best trade deal ever, and then reneges on it 4 years later. So I'll be turning the audio on and off here, just seeing what's happening. And I also got a Pierre Poilievre clip that if you want, I can play. He has broken his silence since losing his riding.
Meeting that could be to their benefit. So film and television, the auto industry, the dairy sector, steel, aluminum, and then just Canadians writ large who are obviously consumed with the changing nature of this relationship, the economic relationship, the potential for a recession.
Michael Weaver, super chat, thank you so much, says GTA 6 will very likely be the best game ever made, without a doubt. Also, what's the likelihood we get another Zelensky situation with Carney today? I'm not saying nothing's going to come out of this meeting. I think it's very possible there's going to be some awkward moment, or maybe he calls him governor or mentions the 51st state and all that shit. But I would be surprised if it's as confrontational as the one with Zelensky, as that was really about military spending and an ongoing war where Trump clearly has already picked a side there. I'd even argue J.D. Vance is more married to Russia than even Trump is. But so I don't expect it to be that spicy of a situation. But I wouldn't be shocked if Trump says something that's disrespectful. And how Mark Carney reacts to that is going to be something to see.
Gate is open. I can see an SUV at the top of the driveway with a Canadian flag on the hood. So I think the White House has given the Canadian delegation the green light to make their way here, but they're still stuck at the front entrance. The military parade here is in formation. They're holding the flags. You see a Marine in front of the West Wing, which signals that the president is in the Oval Office, and he's waiting to greet him. And here we go. Here comes the motorcade right now. Rosemary, I'm going to get out of the way here so you can see it.
Okay. We can see the president now at the door, Richard, just so you know. Donald Trump is at the door awaiting Mark Carney.
The first handshake.
From your vantage point, you can see the motorcade arriving. That's
exciting
great.
stuff.
So things are happening. The Prime Minister, again, his first visit to the White House as Prime Minister, not his first visit he's been there in other capacities, we understand, and also not his first time meeting Donald Trump. They've also met before in previous capacities, but not like this and not under these circumstances.
Oh, they have met. I didn't know that.
The U.S. President posting to Truth Social just moments ago that he doesn't want to, quote, subsidize Canada any further. Okay, here is the arrival.
I'm not a lip reader.
Mr. President, are you close to a trade deal?
Canada as you meet the new Prime Minister, sir.
Trump looks very engaged.
Federal president's breaks tomorrow.
Looks like he really does not want to be here.
There you go. That is Prime Minister Carney arriving at the White House. The U.S. president welcoming him there with some questions.
So they're going to have
being
a
shouted, no answers being given. Handshake went fine. Off they go
meeting
into the
shortly.
Oval Office to see where things go. There you can see also the cabinet ministers arriving, the ambassador.
Just want to hear if we get some information on
some
that.
of the clerk of the Privy Council, the chief of staff right now, Marco Mendocino, and some other officials also accompanying the Prime Minister on their delegation, some of his directors of policy and other aides there with him as they make their way into the White House to begin these conversations, the important conversations between the President and the Prime Minister. The next thing to happen will be the Prime Minister and the President inside the Oval Office. That will be brief, and then they will proceed to meetings and lunch, and we will eventually hear from the Prime Minister directly at 3 p.m. Eastern Time at the embassy, where he will take questions. As David said, the Prime Minister wants to be the sole Canadian voice on this issue today. But Paul Hunter is there too. That looked like a pretty friendly greeting there, Paul. I'm not going to read. I'm not going to try and interpret body language.
Shall we analyze it?
No, let's not. But you do know when things go wrong, and they did seem genuinely happy to see each other.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to draw too fine a point on it, but it was a friendly greeting for Vladimir Zelensky as well. And that is not to say it's going to go the way that one went, by no means.
Yeah.
This is standard fare. It is a part of the process.
Okay, just commentary on a handshake. All right. So within the next 10 minutes, I imagine, I think the face-to-face public meeting is going to happen, which they said is going to be brief. I don't remember how long the Zelensky one was, but even a brief meeting might be a weird meeting. And then, we're not really going to get, depending on how that meeting goes, I guess. We're not going to, I can't imagine too much coming out of it once we hear from Mark Carney at 3 p.m. I'm not going to be live for 4 hours, just letting you know. But later today or maybe tomorrow, I will, if something else comes out of Mark Carney's press conference, I will do a video on that. But as we wait, I'll keep an eye on that in my window here. I'm going to show you what Pierre Poilievre has done. So this is the conservative leader who lost his own riding. Again, I like saying that. I like to remind everybody, in case you didn't know or forgot. Conservative leader lost his riding. And then a few days later, a week later, the Australian conservative leader lost their riding. Interesting stuff. But anyways, so I was only able to get through 20 seconds of this before I had to stop because I have a very hard time listening to Pierre Poilievre deliver a message. He's just very, very fake. But let's see if we can watch this whole thing together and see what his message is here. This is him breaking his silence after losing his own riding. Oh, I just realized. Is it working? Oh, I have it on mute. That's why. 1 second. All right.
Well, it's been about a week since the election, and it didn't go how we wanted. But when you get knocked down, you get up and get going. And we've got a lot to be thankful for. I'm thankful for you, the countless people who packed out our rally halls, our 2.3 million extra votes, the 25 extra seats, the breakthroughs in Ontario and BC, the expanded coalition of young people, union workers, entrepreneurs, soldiers, and countless others who had never voted before and are now supporting our conservative cause. Now, it wasn't enough. We didn't get over the finish line, which means that I need to learn and grow, and our team needs to expand. That will be my mission. And we've got a path. With a path to get elected back into Parliament as soon as possible, we'll be holding the government to account, proposing better ideas to solve the problems that you're facing every day. And our mission hasn't changed. I still want to put you back in charge of your life, give everyone who works hard a fair shot at an affordable home, living on a safe street, protected by police and soldiers and sound laws. so that everybody's safe and our flag flies high over the freest country on earth. Now, it won't be easy, but easy street leads to a dead end, and the hardest paths lead to the best destination. Our destination is a country where the possibilities are as big and blue as this prairie sky. Let's make it happen.
You can see why I had a hard time getting through the video. That was just a whole bunch of bullshit. It's just a whole lot of nothing. All right. He lost his own riding and his party did not win the election. But it's great that all these people voted for me. And now I am moving to a place where I've never been, never lived. And I'm now going to be their representative after kicking out somebody who was 6 months away from a pension, from qualifying for their pension. And now they're going to be kicked out. So I can run in their very deep conservative riding that got 81% conservative support in this election. So at the same time, costing taxpayers for a by-election. Cool. Or you could just leave public life and do something else. But I suppose that might be too hard for you. This is a 20-year politician. This is a guy who claims he has never changed his positions since being a teenager, which already is weird and nobody should be like that. But he claims he's that person. Yet when he was a teenager, he wrote that no politician should serve more than 2 terms. And this guy's been in a seat for 20 years. So I guess that rule doesn't apply to him. I don't know where the Conservative Party goes from here. Let me just keep this up as we wait for this meeting. I don't know where the Conservative Party goes from here, because you have... It is true that the Conservative Party performed well, considering if you take out where they were sitting in January, which was a clear majority, and how they completely lost that lead. If you just ignore recent polling, the Conservative Party performed, I believe they received the most votes since 2011, and in 2011 they formed government. So they didn't perform poorly under Pierre Poilievre. At the same time, a lot of people who may have voted conservative did not vote for the Conservative Party because of Pierre Poilievre. So they're in a situation where he's able to keep support from the base of the party, which they lost about 5% of that to the People's Party of Canada in the 2021 election, when Aaron O'Toole wasn't seen as far right enough for some of that base. So Pierre Poilievre didn't have to worry about the People's Party of Canada this time. Getting that support base, was able to grow, but I don't think the party was really able to grow because of him. Their support grew because the Liberals were in power for 9 years. At some point, especially for people that don't pay too close attention to each of the parties, their positions, their history, seeing the same people in power for 9 years, you just think, hey, I want some change. And the first time I ever voted was literally because I didn't know anything. I was, I guess, 19, 18. I forget how old I was. But it was the first time I voted. The first time I ever voted was conservative, because the Liberals had been in power for a while. And I was of the idea, hey, we've had this for about 10 years now. Time for some change. That was literally the only reason I voted for the Conservative Party. The first time I voted, I didn't know anything about Stephen Harper. I didn't know anything about the Conservative Party. It was just, this label's been on our country for too long. Let's get a new label. And that's how a lot of people vote now. Luckily, now I know better. When you grow, you begin to read more and learn. And especially now, like when I first voted, there was no social media. There was very little political education for somebody of my age. It's a lot different now. A lot of people now that are younger know a lot more, a hell of a lot more than I did. So it doesn't even mean the Conservative Party is at risk of losing those young voters. They could really be gaining some real voter support, especially younger males, because of the shit they're seeing online. And, people like Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson, and they're not really being a whole lot of a left wing alternative or a just a common sense alternative to the absurdity that is fed to these young people online. So it's that I think has led to some of that growth for the Conservative Party. Now the gender gap is massive between men and women, larger than it's ever been for younger voters. So luckily, younger women are not falling into that trap. There isn't really an Andrew Tate for women, I don't think. I'm not even sure what that would be. So luckily, they're not falling into that. But at the same time, like there are legitimate reasons for why young people would vote conservative. Affordability over the past 10 years has just gotten worse. Cost of housing has gone up. People that don't know any better may think, oh, it's because the Liberal Party is so far left and now I got to vote for the Conservative. When the reality is the Liberal Party simply upholds the established powers, capitalism, and hasn't done much to challenge corporate greed and done really anything when it comes to housing and social housing. So the reality is they haven't actually implemented any left-wing policy. It's all been conservative capitalist policy. But it's been a kinder version of it than what the Conservative Party represents. So with the NDP completely decimated, you know, are they meeting now? Or is this?
Okay, we're going to listen in here.
Here we go.
Just watch your arm now.
I'm not pushing.
Not much happening yet, just sitting awkwardly.
Okay, there are cabinet officials,
Cameras are
secretaries,
terrible.
and ministers on each side of the leaders
There we
there as they wait for the cameras to come in. And we'll see what the two men have to say to each other.
How awkward is this whole
To
thing?
Paul's point about things. We'll listen
It's a
again.
great honor to have Prime Minister Mark Carney with us.
This is their cameras, by the way, not me.
A few days ago, he won a very big election in Canada. And I think I was probably
And
the
their
greatest
audience.
thing that happened to him, but I can't take full credit. His party was losing by a lot, and he ended up winning, so I really want to congratulate him. It was probably one of the greatest comebacks in the history of politics, maybe even greater than mine. But I want to just congratulate you. That was a great election, actually. We were watching it with interest, and I think Canada chose a very talented person, a very good person, because we spoke before the election quite a few times. And it's an honor to have you at the White House and the Oval Office. And you see the new and improved Oval Office as it becomes more and more beautiful with love. Handle it with great love and 24-karat gold.
This
That
is,
always helps too.
they're frozen, just so you all
But
know.
it's
It's not me.
been a lot of fun going over some of the beautiful pictures that were stored in the vaults that were for many, many years, in some cases over 100 years. They were stored in vaults of the great presidents, or almost great presidents, all having a reason for being up, every one of them. So it's very interesting. But I just want to congratulate you, and we had a really great race. I watched the debate. I thought you were excellent, and I think we have a lot of things in common. We have some tough points to go over, and that'll be fine. And we're going to also be discussing Ukraine, Russia, the war, because Mark wants it ended as quickly as I do. I think it has to end. We had some very good news last night. The Houthis have announced that they are not, or they've announced to us at least, that they don't want to fight anymore. They just don't want to fight, and we will honor that, and we will stop the bombings. And they
What's with the internet in the White House here?
capitulated, but more importantly, we will take their word. They say they will not be blowing up ships anymore, and that's what the purpose of what we were doing. So that's just news. We just found out about that. So I think it's very, very positive. They were knocking out a lot of ships going, as you know, sailing beautifully down the various seas. It wasn't just a canal, it was a lot of other places. And I will accept their word, and we are going to stop the bombing of the Houthis, effective immediately. And Marco, you'll let everybody know that. Okay? Do you have something to say about that, by the way? It's a pretty big announcement.
Yeah, this was always a freedom of navigation mission. These guys, these are, a band of individuals with advanced weaponry that were threatening global shipping. And the job was to get that to stop. And if it's going to stop, then we can stop. And so I think it's an important development.
And we'll have maybe before we're going to, as you know, the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, we're going to UAE in Qatar, and that'll be, I guess, Monday night. Some of you are coming with us. I think before then we're going to have a very, very big announcement to make, like as big as it gets, and I won't tell you on what, but it's going to, and it's very positive. I tell you if it was negative or positive. I can't keep that up. It is really, really positive. And that announcement will be made either Thursday or Friday or Monday before we leave. But it'll be one of the most important announcements that have been made in many years.
So it's going to be terrible.
Subject,
okay.
Very important subject.
I'm going to
So
guess
you'll all be
income
here.
tax cut. That's my guess.
Mark, would you like to say a few words?
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I'm on the edge of my seat, actually. But thank you for your hospitality and above all, for your leadership. You're a transformational president, focus on the economy with a relentless focus on the American worker, securing your borders, ending the scourge of fentanyl and other opioids, and securing the world. And I've been elected with my colleagues here, with the help of my colleagues here. I'm going to spread the credit to transform Canada with a similar focus on the economy, securing our borders. Again, on fentanyl, much greater focus on defense and security, securing the Arctic and developing the Arctic. And the history of Canada and the U.S. is we're stronger when we work together, and there's many opportunities to work together. And I look forward to, addressing some of those issues that we have, but also finding those areas of mutual cooperation so we can grow.
Very nice. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, is USMCA dead?
No, it was actually very effective, and it's still very effective, but people have to follow it. So, that's been a problem.
Yeah, you haven't been following it. Fucking clown.
Transitional step a little bit, and as you know, it terminates very shortly. It gets renegotiated very shortly. But I thought it was a very positive step from NAFTA. NAFTA was the worst trade deal in the history of our country, probably in the history of the world. And this was a transitional deal, and we'll see what happens. We're going to be starting to possibly renegotiate that if it's even necessary. I don't know that it's necessary anymore, but it served a very good purpose.
It'd be nice
And
if
the
their
biggest
feed
purpose
wasn't
it
so
served was to
goddamn
get rid of NAFTA.
pixelated and
NAFTA
blocky.
was a very unfair deal for the United States. Very, very terrible deal. It should have never been made. It was made many years ago, but it should have never been made.
Mr. President, for the history of Canada and the United States, would you like to see your first trade deal be with Canada, our neighbors in the north?
I would love that. Look, I have a lot of respect for this man, and I watched him come up, in a sense, through the ranks when he wasn't given much of a chance, and he ran a really great campaign. He did a really great debate. I think that debate was very helpful. I'm just going to raise my hand. I don't know if that's good or bad. I shouldn't say that. That might hurt you. But no, he ran a really great election, I thought. And yeah,
We're just going to quickly change feeds, so you might see something again in 10 seconds, but just to make it better for you to understand, we're going to do that now.
Yeah,
But,
thank you.
No, he ran a really great election, I thought. And yeah.
What were they
something
running
could
off
happen.
of before?
Something could happen. Yeah, please.
What's the top concession you want out of Canada? The top concession you want out of Canada?
Concession?
Yes,
Friendship.
but that's not a concession.
No, we're going to be friends with Canada. Regardless of anything, we're going to be friends with Canada. Canada is a very special place.
Top
to me.
concession?
I know so many
Friendship.
people that live in Canada.
What? What does that mean?
My parents had
Does he know what the word
relatives that
concession
lived in
means?
Canada, my mother in particular. And
Unbelievable.
No, I love Canada. I have a lot of respect for the Canadians. Wayne Gretzky. I mean, how good? The great one. You happen to have a very, very good hockey player right here on the Capitals, who I have a lot of. He is a big, tough cookie too. Just broke the record.
What's his name?
And he's a great guy. And
Do you know it?
We had the team here, and I got to know a lot of the players. But
You forgot his name.
no,
Ovechkin.
Canada is a very special place. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, And Mr. Prime Minister, I'd like to get your response to this too. But Mr. President, you have said that Canada should become the 51st state. Were you joking?
No. Well, I still believe that, but you know, it takes two to tango, right? But no, I do. I mean, I believe it would be a massive tax cut for the Canadian citizens. You get free military, you get tremendous medical cares and other things. There would be a lot of advantages, but it would be a massive tax cut. And it's also a beautiful, you know, as a real estate developer, you know, I'm a real estate developer.
Oh my God.
When you get rid of that artificially drawn line, somebody drew that line many years ago with like a ruler. Just
We were going so well.
Right across
Some
the top of
dipshit
the
media
country.
guy had to remind him
When
of
you look at
this
that beautiful
fucking bullshit.
formation when it's together, I'm a very artistic person, but when I looked at that beauty, I said that's the way it was meant to be. But you know, it.
We did not need a journalist to bring
I do
this
feel
up. It
it's
was not
much better
necessary.
for Canada, but we're not going to be discussing that unless somebody wants to discuss it. I think that there are tremendous benefits to the Canadian citizens, tremendously lower taxes, free military, which honestly we give you essentially anyway because we're protecting Canada if you ever had a problem. But I think it would really be a wonderful marriage because it's two places that get along very well. They like each other a lot.
Well, if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, you know, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together. And we have done that in the past. And part of that, as the President just said, is with respect to our own security. And my government is committed for a step change in our investment in Canadian security and our partnership, and I'll say this as well, that the President has revitalized international security, revitalized NATO, and us playing our full weight in NATO, and that will be part of it.
And they have, I must say, Canada is stepping up the military participation because
Stroking that
they were
ego.
low, and
That's
now
how you
they're
play
stepping
Trump,
it up,
stroking
and that's
that
a very
ego.
important thing. But never say never. Never say never.
What would it take to get tariffs off of Canada?
Well, we'll be talking about different things. Like, you know, we want to protect our automobile business, and so does Mark. But we want to make the automobiles, and we want to, you know, we have a tremendous abundance of energy, more than any country. We have, just in Alaska alone, ANWR has been reopened now. ANWR is probably the largest find anywhere in the world. They say it's larger than Saudi Arabia. I don't know, but it's a lot. But we have tremendous amounts of energy. Other countries don't. We're both lucky in that way. They have energy. We have energy. We have more than we can ever use and more than we could ever sell, actually. And you have the same thing. So we're two countries that are very lucky. If you look at China, they don't have that. You know, it's a big disadvantage. Other countries, most countries don't have. You know, most countries don't have that. So Canada and us, we have a lot of advantages over other places.
Oh my God, these companies have billions of dollars, these media companies, and they can't figure out mics.
That Canada's not for sale. Does this make the discussion a little more difficult to start on?
No, not at all. No, not at all. No, time will tell. It's only time. But I say, never say never. I've had many, many things that were not doable, and they ended up being doable, and only doable in a very friendly way. But if it's to everybody's benefit, you know, Canada loves us, and we love Canada. That's, I think, the number one thing that's important. But we'll see. I mean, over time, we'll see.
How would you
what
become
happens.
Canada, bitch?
Mr. President,
China.
I was hoping you can clarify something. Earlier this morning, Capitol Hill Secretary Bessent said that there had been no negotiations yet with China. You have said something different. Can you clarify?
They want to meet, and they're doing no business right now. And those ships are turning around in the Pacific Ocean. Big turn. Those are big ships. Those ships take about 10 miles to turn.
Mark Carney, I think, did pretty well with that
You know,
answer.
we lost $1 trillion.
I'm just
China
lowering
trade.
Trump's volume for now. He's talking about China since this is not really relevant here.
Preceded me grossly in-
Mark Carney, I think, did pretty well with that, you know, response. Some things are not for sale. The White House is not for sale.
So we're saving
The Buckingham Palace is not for sale. because you knew this was going to come up. So he had a canned answer for that, and then he stroked Trump's ego and changed the subject.
If I met, I'd tell you, they want to meet, but, we are right now, look, they're suffering greatly. Their economy is suffering greatly because they're not doing trade with the U.S., and they made most of their money off the U.S. Don't kid yourself. They don't make the money off other countries like this. And we had a trade imbalance. We had a deficit, or they had a surplus, another way of saying it, of more than $1 trillion. Think of it, more than $1 trillion. And because of 145%, that's the only reason, but because of they have now 145% tariff, there's no trading. You can't trade with 145%. We are, therefore, making, in a certain way, I guess, $1.1 trillion. In other words, we're not losing $1.1 trillion. Our deficit is much better. When I started, I say we were losing billions of dollars a day on trade. That's rapidly turning around. We looked at numbers this morning. So we were losing, the United States during Biden was losing more than, I won't even give you numbers because they're so embarrassing, but billions of dollars a day on trade. Those numbers are rapidly turning between the tariffs. Don't forget, we're now getting 25% on cars, 25% on aluminum, 25% on steel, and maybe more importantly, massive numbers of companies are moving into the United States. Honda, we have tremendous, the car companies are moving in at levels we've never seen before. The biggest investment ever made in the United States is being made right now. Trillions of dollars. I would say we could be at $9 trillion. You could go back to other presidents. They haven't had $1 trillion for their entire term. Look at Biden. He had bad numbers. People were leaving. They weren't coming in. They were leaving with Biden, and he didn't know the difference. The only thing he knew is people coming in. You know who they were? Illegal immigrants, okay, from prisons, from mental institutions, from all sorts of places that weren't good, from gangs, from Venezuela. They were coming in and they were criminals and murderers, 11,888 people that murdered, and at least half of them murdered more than one person. This is what Biden led into our country.
Not true at all.
In big companies.
I was tuning this out because when Trump talks now, it's hard to even, it's hard to care because he lies so much so often that it's not even worth acknowledging. It's just so clear and obvious. And if you still don't think he's a bullshit artist, then you're a moron. You'll never be saved. So it's just not even worth paying attention to him. But like, it's just the amount of lies that come into this guy's mouth on every single topic is remarkable.
And I don't think people have appreciated it. Some people do. Some of the smart people do. So we have more money coming in. It's really an amazing thing. We have more money being invested in the United States now than at any time ever before in our history, and it's not even close.
And that's why you will only own 5 pencils. Congratulations.
I don't know everybody that's doing it. We have many. I just heard about a plant that's being built right now, a very, very top-of-the-line company, and they didn't come to the White House. They're just doing it because they're making it because if they build here, there are no tariffs. And this is the big market. This is the market. That sets us apart from it. This is the market where everyone wants to be. Now, if I didn't come here and do this, all of a sudden we wouldn't be the market where everyone wants to be. So we're able to do it in time. But we're going to have a great announcement, and I'm not necessarily saying it's on trade. Going to the beginning, we're going to have a great announcement over the next few days, an announcement that will be so incredible.
Oh my
so
God!
Positive. And I'm not
Shut
saying
the fuck
I don't
up.
want you to think it's necessarily on trade.
The announcement of the announcement. How many times has he got to talk about this announcement?
Situation, because everyone says, when are you going to sign deals? We don't have to sign deals. We could sign 25 deals right now, Howard, if we wanted. We don't have to sign deals. They have to sign deals with us. They want a piece of our market. We don't want a piece of their market. We don't care about their market. They want a piece of our market. So we can just sit down, and I'll do this.
Your people have no money.
For the next 2 weeks, and I'll sit with Howard and Scott and with our great vice president, who has done a really good job. We have some good news to report on a lot of fronts. But JD will be there, and Marco, and we're going to sit down, and we're going to put very fair numbers down, and we're going to say, here's what this country, what we want, and congratulations, we have a deal. And they'll either say, great, and they'll start shopping, or they'll say,
not good. We're not going to do it. I said, that's okay. You don't have to shop. Now, we may think, well, they have a right. You know, that maybe we were a little bit wrong, so we'll adjust it.
Believe me,
And then
not
you
good.
people will say, oh, it's so chaotic. No, we're flexible. But we'll sit down and we'll, at some point, in some cases, we'll sign some deals. It's much less important than what I'm talking about. For the most part, we're just going to put down a number and say, this is what you're going to pay to shop. And it's going to be a very fair number. It'll be a low number. We're not looking to hurt countries. We want to help countries. We want to be friendly with countries. But you keep writing about deals. When are we going to sign? It's very simple. We're going to say, in some cases, we want you to open up your country. In some cases, we want you to drop your tariffs. I mean, India, as an example, has one of the highest tariffs in the world. We're not going to put up with that.
1 and 0.
They've agreed already to
2.
drop it. They'll drop it to nothing. They've already agreed. They would have never done that for anybody else but me. So we're going to put down some numbers, and we're going to say our country is open for business, and they're going to come in, and they're going to pay for the privilege of being able to shop in the United States of America. It's very simple. It's very simple. So I wish they'd keep,
Who are they paying?
Asking how many deals are you signing this week?
What are you talking about?
Because one day we'll come and we'll give you 100 deals.
Your companies are the ones that need the products.
All we have to do is say,
they're the ones paying the tariff. Your people are the ones paying the tariff. Jesus Christ.
Whatever we want. It's very, very simple.
What is this conversation?
And I think my people haven't made it clear. We will sign some deals, but much bigger than that is we're going to put...
No, you will be isolated. Nobody will care. You will be left behind, which has already happened if you've traveled to any other country outside the U.S. You are clearly left behind already.
And we're going to give you a very good price. We're going to make very good deals. And in some cases, we'll adjust.
There's a reason why I can't follow Trump every day anymore. Like, I used to cover this stuff. I used to cover U.S. politics every day. And during Trump's first term, I can't do it now. I can't listen to this fucking garbage every goddamn day. It's not worth it. There's nothing more to learn here. This guy's a fucking lunatic. It's incredible that people were dumb enough to vote for this dipshit again. I'm not going to subject myself to it.
On the Houthis, can you tell us a bit more about the deal that you've reached with the Houthis that you
No,
mentioned?
it's not a deal. They've said, please don't bomb us anymore, and we're not going to attack your ships.
And where did you hear about that?
It doesn't matter where I hear it. The very good source, I could tell you. Very, very good source. Would you say Marco? I would say pretty good, right, JD? A very good source.
Everyone thinks you're a fucking idiot. All those people around you, including your allies, behind closed doors, they laugh at how fucking stupid you are.
Sort of thought that would happen. Behind you, please.
Clarifying something you said on USMCA. Is the U.S. prepared to walk away from that pact?
From what pact?
USMCA.
No, it's fine. It's there. It's good. We use it for certain things. It's there. We have the USMCA is a good deal for everybody.
That you keep violating.
I won't say this about Mark, but I didn't like his predecessor. I didn't like a person that worked for. She was terrible, actually. She was a terrible person, and she really hurt that deal very badly because
he's talking about Chrystia
she
Freeland.
tried to take advantage of the deal, and she didn't get away with it. You know what I'm talking about. But so we had a bad relationship having to do with the fact that we disagreed with the way they viewed the deal, and we ended it. We ended that relationship pretty much. The USMCA is great for all countries. It's good for all countries. We do have a negotiation coming up over the next year or so.
So it's a good deal, but it's also a bad deal. It's a bad deal that we signed, and it was a bad deal at the time, but it's also a good deal, and it's a great deal. We're not changing the deal. It's a great deal, but it's actually a bad deal. Fuck off. Who?
Basis for a broader negotiation. Some things about it are going to have to change. And part of the way you've conducted these tariffs has taken advantage of existing aspects of USMCA. So it's going to have to change. There's other elements that are come, and that's part of what we're going to discuss.
Right.
Trump has no idea what Mark Carney just said there.
Prime Minister Carney talked about the American betrayal. How do you react if Canada decided not to shop in the American store as much as before and decided to partner with other countries?
Well, we don't do much business with Canada from our standpoint. They do a lot of business with us.
What the fuck are you talking about?
And usually those things don't last very long. We have great things, great product, the kind of product we sell. Nobody else.
Do you know how much oil you take? You clown?
Look, we make the best military equipment in the world, and Canada buys our military equipment, which we appreciate. But we make the best military equipment in the world by far. The missiles, the submarines.
Wow, congrats. You you make humanity a worse place to exist. Congratulations.
Afghanistan, which shouldn't have happened, but that was, I think it was the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. It was just very incompetent people. But if you look, the man that's now the head of our Joint Chiefs, he led the attack on ISIS for me. That's why he's the head of the Joint Chiefs. And Raising Cane, he was unbelievable. And as you know, we defeated ISIS in 3 weeks. It was supposed to take 5 years. We did it in 3 weeks.
Oh my God.
And he ran the campaign. I said, I like him, but I knew him before. I went to Iraq, and we agreed to a plan, and that was the plan. And as you know, we did it in record time. So we have the best equipment in the world. We have the best, a lot of things. And but Canada, it does a lot more business with us than we do with Canada. Yeah.
What is that? What does that mean? It's an insane conversation.
This year. When you're saying about the tariffs?
No, about the investments that you've announced. You've announced.
Oh, it's hitting right now. Look, they're already starting AI plants. These are not people that look for financing. That's a good thing. You know, in real estate, you get a site, then you have to look for financing. You have to get your zoning. You know, 5 years later, you start.
This was described as a brief meeting before it happened, and now we're talking about AI plants. Like what? Okay.
Because that doesn't get them to build. All we did is hand very wealthy companies money. The CHIPS Act that was done by Biden, billions. We give them billions of dollars. They don't even have to do anything with it. And then if you weren't, if you didn't have, and I don't want to be a wise guy, but if you didn't go with the DEI, if you didn't go with all of the different things woke, if you weren't woke, you couldn't even use the money. You had to have a certain percentage of this and that and that and that. It's impossible.
You had to have a certain percentage of the woke, and if you didn't have enough of the woke, you wouldn't be able to apply.
They gave me all this money, but nobody can get these people to do anything. I mean, look, President Obama, and if he wanted help, I'd give him help because I'm a really good builder and I build on time, on budget.
Oh my God.
He's building his library in Chicago. It's a disaster. And he said something to the effect, I only want DEI, I only want woke. He wants woke people to build it. Well, he got woke people, and they have massive cost overruns. The job is stopped. I don't know. It's a disaster. And I don't like that happening. Because
the woke ruined Obama's library. It was the woke.
He's got a library that's a disaster. And he wanted to be very politically correct, and he didn't use good, hard, tough, mean construction workers that I love. Marco.
What is
I love those construction workers. But he didn't want construction workers.
He hired only trans workers. Like, what is this fucking... This is so stupid.
I mean, really.
How can anyone listen to this shit and think this man knows what he's talking about, is normal in any way?
Recommend professionals, but it was not built in a professional manner.
Like, what does this even mean?
In California, a little train going from San Francisco to Los Angeles that's being run by Gavin Newsom, the governor
Gavin
of
Newsom?
California. Did you ever hear of Gavin Newsom?
Is he calling it Gavin Newscum? Is that what he's trying to say there?
It's like totally out of control. So then they said, all right, we won't go into San Francisco. We'll stop.
Well, I don't like Gavin Newscum. Now I'm calling him that. I don't like him either, so who cares?
We'll stop 25 miles short. It's hundreds of billions of dollars for this stupid project that should have never been built. And then they realized that it would have been a lot less costly if we just gave limousine service back and forth and gave it free. They would have saved hundreds of billions of dollars. They have airplanes that go there for one 1/100th the cost. And they have cars. They have a thing called the highway that goes back and forth that's not fully utilized. And they got involved with this project. And Gavin, you know, I always liked Gavin. I had a good relationship with him. I just got him a lot of water. You know, I sent in people to open up that water because he refused to do it. And we just got him a lot of water. If they would have had that water, and if they would have done what I said to do, they wouldn't have had the fires in Los Angeles. Those fires would have been put out very quickly. But if you think about it, and you got to take a look at this, it's the worst cost overrun I've ever seen. I've watched a lot of stupid people, build a lot of
Yeah,
stupid
I have
things,
too
but
today,
that's the
for
worst
the past 20 minutes.
crossover I've ever seen. What's happening between San Francisco and Los Angeles, and you ought to ask about that because this government is not going to pay. I told our very great new Secretary of Transportation, he's doing a good job, Sean Duffy. I said, we're not going to pay for that thing. They are just, it's out of control. This is something that you don't have things like this. It's not even conceivable. Like 30 times over budget, 30 times. It's the craziest thing and now it's hundreds of, it was supposed to be a simple train. And I think the media should take a look at it.
Why doesn't he just go be a builder? Go do real estate.
You know, I'd love to see that. But
Why are you here in the White House?
be running because that one project alone, well, that and the fires and a lot of other things, pretty much put him out of the race.
What changes would you like to see to the USMCA? Or what changes would you like to make?
We're going to work on some subtle changes, maybe. I don't
Remove the
even know if we're
woke.
dealing with the USMCA. We're dealing more with concepts right now. Look, right now, we're doing trade. We have trade. They're paying a tariff on cars and steel and aluminum. And I think we have a baseline of 10% or something like that for the
He doesn't
tariffs,
even
but
know because he doesn't
we're
fucking
getting
care.
along very well. Right now, going no further, but we have an agreement. We did something with even parts. You want to discuss that, Howard, with respect to Canada, which helps Canada out?
Sure. So we've made an arrangement with the car companies.
Oh my God. Guys, figure your mics out, please.
Of their USMCA parts are included, and then 15% of foreign parts from the manufactured suggested retail price are not tariffed to help domestic manufacturing really thrive.
So it gave them a chance to be able to build their car parts factories if they're going to. A lot of these companies already have factories, and what they have to do is just fill them out. But they're able to build them in the United States, so we gave them a pretty substantial period of time.
Just to clarify, Mr. President, is there anything the Prime Minister can say to you today to change your mind on tariffing Canada?
Tariffing cars?
Tariffing Canada. Is there anything he could say to you in the course of your meetings with him today?
Why do they ask normal questions to him like he's going to have an answer that makes any sense?
Why not?
Just the way it is.
What's
What-
First thing, if Canadians don't want it, would you respect that?
Sure, I would. But this is not necessarily a one-day deal.
Oh
This
my
is
God.
over a period of time.
Mark Carney
We have
clearly
make
wants to
that
speak, and then
decision.
ask him a
Yes,
question.
go ahead.
Yeah, if I may. Well, respectfully, Canadians' view on this is not going to change on the 51st day. Secondly, we are the largest client of the United States in the totality of all the goods. So we are the largest client of the United States. We have a tremendous auto sector between the two of us, and the changes that made have been helpful. 50% of a car that comes from Canada is American. That's not like anywhere else in the world. And to your question about is there one thing? No, this is a bigger discussion. There are much bigger forces involved, and this will take some time and some discussions, and that's why we're here, to have those discussions, and that is represented by who's sitting around the table.
See, the conflict is, and this is very friendly. We're not. This is not going to be like we had another little blow up with somebody else. That was a much different. This is a very friendly conversation, but we want to make our own cars. We don't really want cars from Canada, and we put tariffs on.
The
cars from
manufacturing
Canada,
processes
and
are
at a certain
intertwined.
point, it won't make economic sense for Canada to build those cars. And we don't want steel from Canada because we're making our own steel, and we're having massive steel plants being built right now as we speak. We really don't want Canadian steel, and we don't want Canadian aluminum and various other things because we want to be able to do it ourselves. And we, because of past thinking of people, we have a tremendous deficit with Canada. In other words, they have a surplus with us. And there's no reason for us to be subsidizing Canada. Canada's a place that will have to be able to.
Mark Carney mentally
take care of
squirming
itself
because Trump has no
economically.
idea what the fuck he's talking
I
about.
assume they can. I will tell you that
Trump is.
Trudeau, when I spoke to him, I used to call him Governor Trudeau. I think that probably didn't help his election. But when I spoke to
He
him,
didn't
I
run
said,
an election.
Why are we taking your cars? Why are we taking your? We want to make them ourselves. I mean, I said, and if the price of your cars went up, or if we put a tariff, if we put a tariff on your cars of 25%, what would that mean to you? He said, that would mean the end of Canada. He actually said that to me. And I said, that's a strange answer, but I understand his answer. But
no, it'd be the end of the automotive business.
To justify subsidizing Canada to the tune of maybe $200 billion a year. We protect Canada militarily, and we always will. We're going to, that's not a money thing, but we always will. But, it's not fair. But why are we subsidizing Canada $200 billion a year, or whatever the number might be?
It's not a subsidy. What are you talking about?
The American taxpayer to
say, none of this makes any sense.
Thank you very much. We're going to have a very...
Okay, there you go. That was the Oval Office meeting between Canada's new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, and the President. It went on for quite some time, perhaps longer than we expected. A couple of important moments, I would say, in there, and I'll bring in Richard Madden and Paul Hunter, who've been listening along with me. The President saying right off the top to the Prime Minister, I was the greatest gift to happen to him. Mark Carney sort of smiled and chuckled, but there were some important moments as well.
I mean, that's sort of true from an
Carney,
electoral
standpoint. To the President when he was talking about the 51st state, saying there are some places that are not for sale. Canada will never be. This is an opportunity in our partnership. Talked more about the security piece as well. For the most part, the Prime Minister let the President sort of do what he does in front of cameras and picked his spots in order to intervene. At another moment, saying that this issue of Canadians' view of the idea of the 51st state would never change. And he said at one point that when it comes to CUSMA or USMCA, some things will have to change, that the United States is taking advantage of it in certain areas as well. He also clarified for the President that Canada remains the largest client of the United States, and talked about how this is a bigger talk, that this is not one thing that is going to fix it. They both agreed on that. This is part of a bigger, broader conversation. But the President rather made it clear that this is a very friendly conversation. He certainly didn't insult or criticize the Prime Minister directly. In fact, he applauded him for his performance at the debates during the campaign and his win, and then pointed back to the former Prime Minister as the source of some of the problems that Canada and the U.S. has had. Let's bring in Richard Madden and Paul Hunter, who've been listening along with me. We're very used, obviously, to these displays inside the Oval Office and the way the President kind of performs in some ways for the cameras and takes moments to extol on some of his issues. What was different and important for Canada is this time Canada's Prime Minister was sitting there, and a couple moments I wondered, is he going to get in here? Is he going to make a point? And he did on a couple of occasions. Paul, give me your impressions on what we just saw.
Well, I was certainly watching Mark Carney's body language at the end when it felt like it was taking a turn southward. It's always complicated when you enter into the conversation the word respectfully, which Mark Carney did as he was making his points about some of Trump's,
respectfully, Donnie, you're a fucking clown.
On, be it the 51st state or on trade issues. But I thought, I thought it began remarkably friendly with some of the things that that Donald Trump said. I think he said as well that he not only did he watch the debate in Canada, but he said that I think he called it the greatest political comeback ever, perhaps even better than mine, said Trump. But then they both kind of stood their ground. On the 51st state stuff, it was interesting to hear Trump say it takes two to tango. The suggestion being, I guess, that if Canada doesn't want to, he wouldn't press it. You never know with Trump. But then he went on to make his case. But then on trade, then he went down the path that he has gone so many times. We don't want Canada, the U.S., doesn't want Canada's cars, doesn't want its energy, doesn't want its X, Y, Z. As Mark Carney sat there, I guess, deciding whether to interject or not. I was half expecting him to say, are we going to get into this now? Or will we wait until the luncheon, which is the business lunch, which is beginning as we speak, presumably to pick up from where they.
It's
they
not
left
going to be
off.
much
But I
different than
thought-
that.
the
Their
other thing I would
private meeting
say,
is not going to
Rosemary,
go much different than
it
what
was
they
interesting
than
to
what
hear
just happened.
Trump describe the USMCA, as they call it here, CUSMA as we call it, as a transitional deal. Perhaps Trump's way of saying that's why he signed it. And now it's time, as both countries suggest, time to work towards something new, which I think both said in that back and forth will take time.
Yeah, you're right that the president was also quite flattering to the prime minister, saying, I have a lot of respect for this man. So that's sort of the bar that they're starting from, which I think is probably useful in this conversation. But he did repeat again and again, Richard, the comments that he believes about trade, that the United States is subsidizing Canada, that they're losing billions of dollars, that this isn't a deal that works anymore. At one point, he talked about how USMCA was a good deal for everyone, but it does need to change. He alluded to a bad relationship with his predecessor and also, I think, to Chrystia Freeland, who was part of the team that negotiated that deal. But it doesn't sound like, I think Paul's right. Each person stood their ground in terms of what they think. I don't know how that helps then a negotiation, but I don't think that the Prime Minister put Canada in a weakened position in the Oval Office.
No, I agree with you. It was notable, Rosemary, how Carney stayed mostly silent throughout this bilateral meeting, letting the president take center stage, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a contrast when we saw French President Emmanuel Macron and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer really trying to interject themselves in the conversation. But Prime Minister Carney did try to push back gently when the president started talking about the auto sector. Carney threw statistics and so forth. And you did see that little bit of tension.
Yeah,
when,
but that's data and information. How is that useful to the conversation with Trump?
So I expect that that's what's going to be discussed behind closed doors, the auto sector in particularly, energy exports, and lumber. We heard the president repeat himself as well. I think the shiny object that the American networks are likely going to pick up, of course, is that whole debate around the 51st state. Obviously, Carney came prepared with his response saying, look, like in real estate, some things aren't for sale. Then the president went on to say, well, never say never. I think that's the shiny object, but the substantive side, I think the president hinted of what that might be. Autos, I think, is top of the list.
Okay, I'm going to put you both on pause just for a minute because otherwise I'm going to lose my next guest, and that's Canada's former ambassador to the U.S. and former premier of New Brunswick, Frank McKenna. Frank McKenna, thanks for sticking with us. You were listening in there. What did you make of how the Prime Minister did?
Well, I thought he did just fine. Look, it's an event being held at the White House. One has to be respectful, as Canadians always are, to the host, and I thought our Prime Minister asserted himself where he could and was respectful and didn't try to interject where it would have been inappropriate.
The moment that he did take, let's look at the two moments where he did interject. One on the 51st state, which clearly he could not allow Trump to say something without a response, saying, listen, in real estate, there are things that are not for sale, just like this place. It's not for sale. Canada never will be. That's not something that Canadians will ever change.
If you want to go watch
their
CBC,
mind
you can. I'm going to get to some comments here.
I like that a lot. It's just important to get it on the record because that probably will be the news item of the day.
Sure.
But he also made it clear.
All right. So, who was it? TK says Macron was strong, Carney was weak. Let's face it. I don't agree. Carney wasn't asked many questions directly, so he interjected where he had to on the 51st state stuff and on I think it was around manufacturing, around cars, but apart, like, there is no threat to Macron and France in a way that there is to Canada from the U.S. It's a different situation geographically. It's a different relationship. There weren't comments made about Macron being a governor or about, the U.S. taking over France. It's a whole different dynamic. So because of the different dynamic, there has to be a different approach. I don't think Carney, he didn't give anything up. He just didn't interject in a way that maybe you would have wanted to see. But it's like it's Trump. What is there to be accomplished from getting confrontational in public with Trump? He ends up benefiting in a situation like that. There's no reason to inflame something when it's not necessary. It makes sense to interject when it comes to comments about the being a state. But apart from that, I thought Carney performed fine. I don't think there was anything bad from his position. It's just wild listening to Trump. Like to hear Trump, go off on tangents again. Like again, I stopped listening to him, or stopped paying daily attention to what he's saying a while ago. So just to be reminded of how out of his fucking mind Trump is, it's just every time I see him, every time I see Trump, it's a reminder of how fucking stupid people are and just how easily people are taken in by right-wing propaganda. And the fact that here's the difference between Canada and the US. You have Fox News and had Fox News for 40 years, slowly killing the minds of people. And then, of course, over the past 10 years, there has been further detriment or deterioration of your minds by other further right media. Canada's never had a Fox News. We have more restrictions, more regulations around our media here, which led to a recent election where the older you were, the more likely you were to vote for the Liberal opposed to the Conservative, which is unheard of in the US. But 65 plus was the biggest gap for Liberal support in favor of the Liberals compared to any other demographic. And again, that's because we don't have an insane right-wing media ecosystem that has been destroying the minds of people for 40, 50 years. All right, let me get to some super chats. Rachel Atwood, is Vance going to meet with his conehead friend? Are you talking about Jamil Javadi? I don't know. Rachel Atwood again says, which particular tribes own the land in Alberta? I'm not certain, but it's First Nations. I don't know which, but I believe there are 3 treaties that make up Alberta, which if they were to try and remove themselves from Canada, ownership would just simply go back to First Nations. Picks. What is height, weight of the Prime Minister? Trump says he's 6'3", 220. I don't know what Mark Carney's height and weight is. I don't know why anyone would know that, but I have no idea. Rickering says, I don't know that the Liberals can capitalize on their win. I hope they implement some changes, but I have some serious doubts. We may have just deferred things. I think Mark Carney's serious about housing. That's the one very clear agenda item and one that definitely needs to be addressed. I do think, considering how specific he was about his housing plan, about creating a quasi-crown corporate, if not an outright crown corporation, and Build Canada Homes to manage the building of housing, and 500,000 homes per year, prefab housing, a real investment and focus on that. It sounded like reading the plan, it sounds like at least some element of that is social housing, but a big piece of it, if not all of it, is definitely public-private partnerships. But regardless, we need homes here. Cost of housing in Canada is insane. So I do think that's going to be, if anything gets done, apart from whatever relationships Canada builds with other countries, if anything gets done domestically, I think it's going to be on housing. Jake Hass says, I would get a Newsmax ad on a day. Also worth mentioning just on the fact that it's Mark Carney and not a conservative and not Pierre Poilievre means we are also maintaining the dental plan and expanding the dental plan, which is expanding now to 18 to 54. Keeping pharmacare, keeping $10 a day childcare. So all of these public programs that came in under the Liberals are going to maintain because the Liberal Party won the election. Whereas if it was Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, all of that was at risk of being cut. So you can view that as a net benefit as well. Jake Hass says, I would get a Newsmax ad on that David Dole video. Shake my head. Yeah, when it comes to these right-wing channels, they tend to put ads on all political content. Rachel Atwood says, still thinks asylum seekers are from insane asylums. Yeah, I was tuning out during that portion when Trump was talking about insane people. When he gets on these tangents about topics I've heard him go on about before, I have a hard time listening to him because it's just none of it's important. It's coming out of the mouth of a madman. Marty, thank you for your game over super sticker. Timothy says, Carney is trying to tune out all the lies Donald Trump is spewing right now. Me and him both. Pick says, I blame the pigeons. Corey Tobias says they laugh at him like he's a toddler they taught to swear. JD Myrtleman says he's an empty suit, but I think he believes everything he says. So painful to listen to. 1500 yes says if you're sending gifts to the US and don't want to pay the tariffs, then you better just consider sending gift cards or even just money. Carrie Shaw with a very generous 1999 super chat. Thank you. Says, for your mental health, thank you for covering the presser. Well, thank you. For my mental health, I will utilize that super chat to maybe, I don't know, get myself a burrito or something. Something to make me feel nice. Surendra says, you got to check the landslide in Australia. You mean the election? I did. I was up early on, what was it, Saturday? And saw what happened to their conservative leader, which I believe is, if I'm not mistaken, their conservative is part of the Liberal Party, I think. But regardless, yes, lost his seat just like Pierre Poilievre did. Galactic Moth says the U.S. West Coast would become the 11th/12th province willingly. Let's bang that drum. I would love to be able to go and visit Washington State, California. I love West Coast U.S. At least elements of it. It has been wild to witness just over the past 10 years. So I went to San Francisco in 2012, and it was my first time there. I loved it. I was just there it was a work trip. It was for the Game Developers Conference. So it was like a quick 3-day trip. But I'd always wanted to go to San Francisco, and it was just beautiful. I found some time to get away from the convention center and go sit on the beach for like an hour or two. Just wonderful place. And then I went to San Francisco 10 years later maybe it was earlier than that. I don't know. But I went maybe around like 2019. And it was wild to witness just how much worse San Francisco got over about 10 years. Unfortunately, I think that's sort of been the case for a lot of major American cities when, everything, cost of housing has gone up everywhere. I would say it's worse in Canada, but just cost of living in the US has skyrocketed. You still don't have things like guaranteed health care. So a lot of homelessness has exploded. And this isn't necessarily because, of one or the other party. It's really just been an approach where neither party has served the needs of what a government should do to take care of its people. And you see the result of that in just the level of poverty that Americans are now experiencing. DHG says the Lib and CBC platforms ideologically are not crazy different. They both support Ukraine, native rights, national health care, abortion, etc. What matters is their actual records and the history. I did a video on the conservative platform. You can go find it. Probably in the past couple weeks or so, because they released that platform late. There is a line in the conservative platform that claims that they're going to be for union rights. And they cite two anti-union bills that they say, we're not going to be in support of bills like this. You go look up those bills. Those bills were both conservative bills. Only the Conservative Party voted for those anti-union bills, and Pierre Poilievre voted for both of them. So you can say whatever you want on the platform. It doesn't mean that there's any basis in actual reality. The Conservative Party, clearly based on what they have always fought for, is not the party that Pierre Poilievre is trying to claim they are, or claim they were during this past election. Pierre Poilievre has a 20-year record of voting against workers' rights, of voting on behalf of business. And this campaign, he was pretending he was some working class hero. It's comical to anyone that knows anything about the history of either the Conservative Party or Pierre Poilievre, just to witness what they attempted to do. And like you can't fall for it. The Perkinator says even though he didn't get to say much, it was surgical. Exciting worldview points says Carney held firm as Trump rambled on, likely baiting him to interrupt. He stayed silent, steady, outlasting the noise without taking the bait. Rachel Atwood says, can New England please become New South Quebec? And then Minnie says, guys, we need a group hug. Sure, why not? All right. There we go. I may or may not do a video today. I mean, this what I worked just now. That was an hour long of working. That's enough for me today. Depending on what happens with this Mark Carney press conference at 3:00, there may be more to discuss. We'll see. I'm also trying to debate how closely I want to follow what's happening in the U.S. anymore. I mean, this channel was built on really probably, I would say, 70% covering the U.S., 30% covering Canada, if not a little more for the U.S. in that split. But now, over the past few weeks, it's mostly been Canada, and I'm finding it very tough personally to want to follow American news on a daily basis for really a couple of reasons. One, it's so goddamn depressing, and I feel like I don't really have much else to add to that conversation. And the other, there's a big focus on Canada right now for good reason. And I think it's important to lend my voice to that, at least for now, during this time of uncertainty. So that's kind of where I'm at. You know, when big things happen in America, I'm not going to ignore it. But I can't cover the same, like, depressing news story, just repeat it over and over again, when I feel like I have nothing really to add to the conversation, and it's just making me depressed. And that's why, you know, I'll cover the Bernie rally because that's sweet and exciting and gives me some hope. But seeing how Trump violated the Constitution again, I just don't find all that enthralling, especially when a lot of other channels and a lot of other networks cover that and cover it properly. I don't feel like I have a whole lot to add there. But we'll see. I'll take it by day. So that's how I'm feeling. Space Dragon says, you'll leave us behind. Jennifer says, love the Canada focus. Veronique says, yes, focus on Canada. I will still follow you. Now, I'm not going to ignore the U.S., but just, you know, it's not going to be a daily American news thing. That's not. I think that's been clear over the past month. So I'm just going to, this is the reality. I'm going to cover what I find interesting. So whether it's Canada, whether it's the US, whether it's another country, if I come across a story where I'm like, I find this interesting and I want to talk about this for some reason, and I want to discuss what's going on here. And usually the stories that interest me are ones that there's an element of that story that isn't getting enough airtime or isn't being discussed in a way that I want to discuss it. Then that's kind of what attracts me to a story. So that's what I prefer to focus on. But whatever. All right. I'm going to jump off. Thank you all for joining. Fun time. See you all in the future in another video. Either today or tomorrow. Probably tomorrow, depending on what comes out of this Mark Carney presser at 3 p.m. But see you then. Goodbye.